Good morning, everyone. This is Jen Espinosa-Goswami coming to you from my page Weightless, where it is a body positive community helping you find your bliss today and not someday. I'm a holistic health coach, and today I'm welcoming another holistic health coach by the name of Hannah Garland. Welcome, Hannah.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here. So,
Oh,
yeah.
good. I love connecting with other health coaches, especially because I think we're training through different places. So we'll talk a little
Mhm.
bit more about that. Hannah is coming to us from Austin, Texas, and
Mhm.
um, she is the creator and the owner of New Moon Wellbeing.
Mhm.
Hannah is a holistic health coach with a background that's very intriguing in the food industry, nutrition, dietetics, and
Mhm.
psychology. So, very well rounded background here. And Hannah especially loves helping others reach their full potential and to feel good in their bodies, hearts, and minds.
Mhm.
I will share New Moon Wellbeing shortly, but for anyone who's joining us live, welcome. We're so excited you're here.
Mhm.
Just a little administrative detail. I can't see who's commenting unless you give StreamYard permission. StreamYard is the service we're using to go live today. So if you want me to see your name, just let me know. I will be monitoring the comments, so feel free to ask as many questions as you want. Hannah will answer both live and on the replay, so don't hesitate to reach out with your questions or comments. We appreciate you very much. All right, well, Hannah, I'm super excited. Is there anything you want to share with us about what's happening with you today?
No, nothing really. It's cold here in Texas, or cold for us. So, which I love because this is my favorite time of year. So, yeah, that's about it. I'm so glad to be here with you and everyone else. So, mhm.
Awesome. Tell me what cold looks like in Texas. I'm not sure.
30s.
Okay. Okay.
Um, yeah, and it gets kind of humid here, so it feels colder than it is. Like last night it was in the 50s, but I was like real cold, like I had to turn the heater up. So, um,
Well, I
yeah,
mean, we get here too in Minnesota. When it's 30s, that's definitely cold. So I get
yeah,
you.
yeah. I just feel
Well,
like we're really sensitive to the cold here. So when it gets cold, we're like, we gotta wear like so many layers. So, yeah.
well, the good news is you enjoy the cold, which is very unusual for most people who are in Texas.
Yeah, well, we rarely get it. So like when it comes, you got to embrace it fully. So,
Ooh,
yeah.
I love that perspective. Well, I do
Mhm.
have a few questions for you to learn
Sure.
more about your background, and so I can share you with people who are listening.
Mhm.
I shared a little bit in your bio about your background, but what did you go to school for?
I went to school for nutrition and dietetics and I minored in psychology. Originally, I had gone to school for psychology because I wanted to be a therapist and I minored in anthropology, but I changed for two reasons. One, psychology, I don't know if that's a lot of mental weight. Like you have to, I can't, it's hard for me to disconnect. Like, how would I help people and not take that stuff home? So I was just like, okay, I got to find a different way to help people. And then I went to nutrition because my dad got ill and I noticed he was really focusing on his food and I was like, "Oh, this is it. This is what I want to do." Yeah. So that's why I changed kind of courses based on what was going on in my life. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's really important consideration you bring up, especially about being in the field of psychology. It is very heavy work. It is very
Mhm.
emotional work, and that you recognize that is really an important thing. Now, tell us a little bit more about how you use nutrition to support your dad.
Well, he was going through chemo and radiation there for a while, but he decided to not continue that because it was really affecting his quality of life. But I noticed there were certain things that would make him feel better and things that would make him feel worse. And so he really honed in on the things that were supporting him to have a better quality of life. And being in the food industry for 16 years almost, I never related the two. Like, I mean, I knew, like, you hear as a kid, like, eat things that are good for you, but I never, like, really saw the relationship that food is medicine until my dad got ill. So,
Hmm.
um, Yeah, so he just started eating like more whole foods and like staying away from certain things that would sort of inflame his body. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, I'm so sorry about your dad. I know he's passed since then, and
Yeah.
my dad also passed. He
Oh,
had couple types of cancer, which
yeah.
yeah, you know, at that time of life, you tend to think about what can we do, and we
Hmm.
can choose what we eat. And
Yeah.
some foods impact us differently when our bodies are compromised.
Yeah.
So I understand where you're coming from with that, and just the challenges that come through that. And I love that that fueled your passion for serving people in a
Yeah,
way that feels, you know, good for you.
for sure. And my dad was like one of the kindest people ever. And so that really like resonated with me too, because I have like this superpower of being able to connect with people. And I was like, I have to use this gift that I was given. And I feel like I got the gift from him. So every day when I'm working with people and on myself, I remember why I'm doing it. And he's one of the reasons why I do this. So yeah.
That's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know you shared, like we've had some conversations before, and for those of you who are watching, I was also on Hannah's podcast, which was a great experience,
It was great.
talking talking about astrology of all things. But you shared with me some things personally that are true for you, and the title of this live stream is "Staying Sober Over the Holidays." So we will definitely address that if you're like, I want to learn more about that. But I wanted to quickly ask about being vegan, because
Mm-hmm.
you are vegan, right?
Yes. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what went into your decision to go vegan.
For sure. Um, I was a vegetarian for a long period of time. I really love animals. And I guess I kind of we had when I was in school for nutrition, we had to watch a bunch of documentaries on food. And I saw how the animals were being treated, and I was like, you know, it doesn't make sense for me to continue to contribute to this. Um, and so after being vegetarian for a while, I finally went vegan. And I think it was easier for me because I was already a vegetarian, so I just had to remove a few other things. Um, but it just really if you eat like whole foods, being vegan is like really good for your health and for your mind. Um, but it's also good for the environment too. And so I was just like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. This feels really good for me. Obviously it takes a little bit of learning how to like what is this stuff? Like how do I get enough protein? How do I get all of my vitamins? You know, but yeah, that's how I got there. I really love animals. Like it's kind of abnormal how much I like animals. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Do you have any pets?
Um, two dogs. I had a cat for like 21 years or 22 years. Kitty, that was her name. She was a tortie. She was the coolest cat ever. I think she was a human in a cat's body, if that's possible. Because I'm not generally a cat person, but she was my person.
Oh,
um,
cute.
yeah, and then the dogs, I love them, Woody and Junie, and they're wonderful. So yeah, I love them. I would have more, but you gotta be responsible for all of these creatures. So
That's a good point. Yeah, it
yeah,
takes work, right? It takes effort,
it
and
does.
I'm sure they
Yeah.
love you. I have a dog too, so my dog Betsy is. We miss her so badly when we're
Yeah.
not with her. So
Yeah. Yeah. They're your family, you
they
know?
are.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially during shelter in, when maybe you're not allowed to see anyone in your family
Yeah.
that are human.
Mhm. They're like, hey, I get to spend all this time with you now. This is wonderful. Thank you for being in whatever's happening. This is great. Yeah.
Totally true. It's kind of interesting because I had a brief experience with going vegan last year. I
Mhm.
took the Veganuary pledge in
Oh,
January
cool.
of last year, and
Yeah.
it was a challenge for me, Hannah. I can't lie.
Mhm.
Like I love being vegetarian. I've been vegetarian before, but for
Yeah.
some reason, removing cheese and
Oh, for
butter
sure.
was a huge
Yeah.
challenge for me.
Mhm.
So, and I know you used to work for a vegan bakery, right?
I've worked for a few different, yeah, I've worked for an all vegan cafe here in Austin called Fat Cats for a while. And I used to work at Wheatsville Co-op, which is a super cool co-op. And we did a bunch of vegan stuff in that bakery as well. Um, But yeah, I've worked at a bajillion bakeries here in town, and I had my own bakery there for a little while too, where I was doing like mostly bread and cupcakes. So yeah, I love baking. That's definitely a passion of mine for sure. Yeah. And you think it's going to be hard because it's vegan. And when you think baking, you think like eggs and milk and butter. But there's all different kinds of easy replacements for those things. So it's not as complicated as it appears. Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting, because I barely scratched the surface of vegan baking, but I think I only found one or two recipes that I actually could appreciate the texture
For
and
sure.
had the appropriate rise for the things
Mhm.
I was baking. So it was a challenge for me. What is one of your favorite things to bake?
I really like chai. Chai is my favorite drink of all drinks. And I have this chai spice scone that I like to make, and it has candy ginger in it.
Nice.
And it's one of my favorite things ever. um, but I don't make them all the time because obviously you have to, there's a time and place for that. Yeah, they're delicious. And candy ginger. I don't know if you've ever had candy ginger before, but it's wonderful.
I love it. I'll sometimes munch on it on the side of my tea. So I
That's
love it.
great. Yeah, yeah, and it's good for your tummy, in moderation. So, yeah.
How do you even make scones without eggs or butter?
It's kind of all about like not over mixing the dough. I use like a vegan butter replacement, and then in vegan baking, you will use like we call it a flax egg. So I believe you take 1 tablespoon of ground flax and you mix it with 3 tablespoons of water, and it kind of like coagulates.
Oh, okay.
And you
Okay.
just let it hang out for like 5 minutes, and then yeah, and that's how you replace the egg in there. So milk is easy to replace.
Milk is way easy. Yeah, I've become very good at that. But
Yeah,
yeah, I
yeah,
mean, there's oat milk, there's almond milk, there's all
for
sorts of
sure.
options. Yeah.
Cashew milk. Yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I wanted to get to your decision to go sober because I was really curious about that, especially over the holiday. I hear from
Mhm.
friends, and I'm of the age group where it seems that you can't find a woman in her 40s who's not holding a glass of wine or talking
For
about
sure.
wine o'clock or anything like that. And
Yeah.
so I feel like it's kind of rampant in society. So tell me a
Mhm.
little bit about your decision to go sober.
Well, substance abuse or drinking in general runs in my family. We have kind of an Irish German heritage. My father was a sober alcoholic my entire life, and my dad's parents kind of struggled with that as well. So I knew it ran in my blood. And I got sober because it was affecting my health, whether I wanted to acknowledge it or not. And it was kind of I it wasn't the problem. I was the problem, but I was letting it ruin things in my life, like jobs, relationships. I just didn't like who I was when I was drinking. And I don't know when to stop until it's too late. So
Mm.
I don't know if that's just how my body processes alcohol. I'm not really sure. I just knew that I didn't like what was happening when I drank. And so I was just like, I have to stop this. This is not going well for me. And it's so nuts how much changes when you stop completely.
Mm.
Like your body feels better. Like your mind feels better. Like this is the clearest I've ever been since I can remember, like being a
Wow.
kid. Obviously everybody doesn't want to go completely sober. Maybe they're just sober curious or they just want to cut back. And I support all of that. Just taking a break from it can be really good for you. Um, just like dialing it back. There's all kinds of different non-alcoholic beers and wines out there that are amazing. Like there's some super fancy beers out there that don't have any alcohol in it, and you'll never know the difference. So yeah, it seems daunting because it's so ingrained in our society to have beer and wine all the time. But it's not as difficult as it appears. Yeah.
Interesting. I love that you shared that it was affecting your health in various negative ways that you didn't want to sustain. It just wasn't helpful for you. And I think, a lot of people can resonate with that because, sometimes we turn to various things. For me, it was food. For other people, it might be alcohol or shopping. For some people, we're in the shopping season, that helps you cope. So I think that you were able to be aware of how it was affecting you and decide to make a change was really powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Coping skills. If you don't have good coping skills, you might not even recognize that that's what you're using that for. I was talking, my brother is sober as well, and so we kind of talk about these things. He's in the music industry, so it affects him in like a completely different way than it does me, because the music industry is full of drinking. So we think about that often. It's good to try to learn new coping skills that actually support you rather than break you down, Yeah,
I love that. I might use that as a quote later on because that's a really powerful statement and so true. When you first decided to go sober, did you get teased, or how did your friends react to that? Just like, how did that go for you?
For sure. I think at the time, my friends were people who I was really only friends with because we would do the same things together. And so when I eliminated one of those things, I kind of realized who my real friends were. Because friends are going to be there to support you through whatever changes you're making. So if they're not being supportive, sometimes you have to step away from those relationships because you're not going to be able to do what you want to do when people are constantly questioning why you're doing what you're doing. Like, you need a solid foundation, like a good support system in order to make changes like this. So the people who judged me, I kind of just stepped away from those relationships. But the people who were supportive, they were supportive. They didn't question why I was doing it. They were really aware of the fact that, this was happening. Like, they'll even plan to go different places so that I don't feel triggered. People will have offerings at their house that are non-alcoholic for you. So, the people who are still in my life have been really supportive of it. So it's
That's
important.
awesome.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think there's that fear there, right? Like, if you tie drinking into your sense of identity, you do have to kind of find new people and new circles to run in, because that's part of their identity sometimes as well. And that's what you have in common.
For sure.
So it's interesting that you share that you found other people who were supportive, or the people who were supportive are the ones you stuck to, because what you have in common is that it's more than just what you're drinking while you're hanging out together. There's other things that were part of that friendship. So I think that's the fear for a lot of people if they change something in their life. It could be anything, that they're a different person. And sometimes that's a great thing because you want to move towards something that feels enlightening and energizing for you. But also you have to say goodbye to who you were before. And that can be difficult for many people.
Yeah, I guess I can see how you're totally right. I can see how some people might be deterred from making that change because they're afraid of losing, like feeling maybe abandoned, or that's why it's so easy to cling to it, because you're like, well, okay, I'll just keep doing this because I don't want to feel uncomfortable. Like, I don't want to be in that uncomfortability. Yeah. So
or even that, like, people are afraid to say no or bring their own options, like the people pleasing piece of it, where you're like, oh, well, they offered it to me. It's rude for me to say no.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And especially during the holidays, because it can either be a really joyous time, or it can be kind of a stressful, anxiety, just anxious time period. Like, you want to have a good time, but maybe you're with people you don't necessarily get along with, so you might overindulge in order to, like, not feel anxious or stressed. Or you're having a really great time, and so you're not watching what you're doing. And so when you're not drinking, you have to be, like, really present, which is kind of uncommon sometimes when you're celebrating. you're like not completely there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've certainly felt that before too, either with the family stress or with the, I'm having a great time, I'll have another whatever.
Yeah, let's keep this
You know,
party going.
yeah,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
do that. I mean, it's very common to associate food and drink with good times, right?
Mhm.
Every celebration in life involves food or drink.
That's
So
true. Yeah.
that's a hard construct to get away from. What would you recommend for people who are listening about if they are sober curious? Maybe they're not ready to go cold turkey, but
Mhm.
they're curious. Like, what steps would you recommend they take?
I guess maybe the first thing is to address why you drink. Because I feel like once you see why you do things, you're more likely to stick to something. You got to the root of it. And so it's not just this unknown thing. It's like this thing you've really focused in on, like, I know why I do this. So now I know how to dial it back. Tell people, share with them so that you know who is supportive and so that they can support you in the best way that they possibly can. Find alternatives. There are lots of alternatives. You could be a sparkling water kind of person, or you could be a non-alcoholic wine and beer. Just because you can't drink alcohol doesn't mean you can't drink something that tastes similarly. So that I think when people are first getting sober, they really go hard on those kinds of things because they want to have that. They want to have it. But I feel like after you've been sober or after you've cut back for a while, it just kind of, you don't need that as much anymore. It's kind of like there to help you move, transition. Maybe alternate between, if you are continuing to drink, maybe alternate. So like have a alcoholic beverage, then drink something that's not alcoholic, like water or sparkling water or juice or something. Just, or maybe set like a limit. So like, okay, I'll have 3 tonight or I'll have 2 tonight and that's it. And then have an accountability buddy. It's always nice to have an accountability buddy. Like, hey, we're going into this. We're only having 3. So I got you. You got me. Let's do this. So
I love those tips.
yeah, I think that's all I can really think of. Maybe document how you feel the next day in your journal.
Okay.
So that you can see like how it actually affects you. Because I think sometimes people are like, oh, this is normal. I feel fine. But like then when you analyze it, you're like, no, I was kind of like drained of energy and foggy all day. So that might give you more support for yourself to say, hey, I know what happens when I do this. So I think we all know what happens when we do too much. Like we have all experienced a hangover of some sort. Yeah, it's not fun. And then you do it again and you're like, why did I do that? That was terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love that you suggest, first starting with why it is you're drinking. We all have different reasons and different trigger events and reasons. Yeah. And sometimes we don't create awareness around that. It sounds like you had some pretty strong awareness around why you were drinking personally. Yeah. But I love that you also back end it with the note down your mood the day after, because if we miss that step and we're just like, oh, it's fine. It was just one day. I'm good. I can move on. We don't create that reflection. And we can't change it if we don't understand how it impacted us at the end of the day. So I love that you have those, the front end of it and the back end of it, because that's the step to making change happen, right? To understanding why it's important to continue finding those alternatives and having an accountabuddy for you. And like you said, there are many alternative options, which I wasn't even aware there was non-alcoholic beer. Like, what does that?
Amazing. I can't give you any specific brand names that I would suggest, but there's a man here in Austin. His name is Chris Marshall, and he has a sober bar called Sam's Bar. And they have all these really cool mocktails that they make with, like, there's non-alcoholic tequila, there's non-alcoholic vodka, there's really good, like, there's all kinds of drinks you can have. You can go, like, the liquor stores here have been known for having a huge variety of non-alcoholic stuff, because I guess in Austin there's like this movement going on, this sober movement, and I'm all about it. So because you want some of those things sometimes, and it feels like sometimes it feels like you're being punished. Like, I can't partake, but I want to partake without the alcohol, but I can't. So it's nice to have something in your hand that tastes like similarly. Yeah. Because what ends up happening is you feel like you're not involved in the same things that other people are involved in, and that just hikes up your anxiety. And so then it's easier for you to accidentally give in. So if you can have something that kind of is like a placeholder for that, I think it's a great thing. I'm into it.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're in the right place for it too, with the sober movement happening out there, which is fabulous. I don't know how accurate it is across the country, but like you said, I'm sure there are other sober bars.
Yeah.
These alcohol-free tequila, which I wonder what that's even made of. But when you think about it, alcohol is basically fermented something.
For sure. Yeah.
So like kombucha is fermented, and that could be good for you. So, it's curious to me that those alternatives exist, but I'm happy that they do exist, because until you try new things, you won't know whether it's good or whether it's an appropriate substitute for you. So the fact that they exist means that people are looking for these options.
Yeah, definitely. And I've noticed, I'm not sure what the people who are watching this are into, but there's a bunch of resources for you. Like, I follow a bunch of people on Instagram who are sober. There's sober mom groups you can join. There's all kinds of sober groups you can join, even if you don't want to be completely sober. These people are very understanding of people who are just making changes. Like, they just want to come back. So I highly suggest like getting in those groups, because it's nice to see people posting stuff that reminds you of why are you doing this,
Yeah, that's great that you mentioned those resources. And if you want to send me some links, or just pop the links after this video so people can check some of those groups out on Instagram. I will also be sharing Hannah's handle out here. So if you're on Instagram, go give her a follow. She's great. And it's interesting. So if you're watching this and you know that you're drinking a little too much right now, I have a lot of friends in my network who are recovery coaches, recovery from addiction. So if that's something you're interested in, I'm happy to connect you. Just private message me. There are plenty of resources for you. So Hannah and I both are here to tell you, like, you're not alone. There's help out there, whether it's with us individually and the resources we're sharing with you, or with someone we know who offers that type of support. So just know, and there's a way for you, whether that's fully sober or not. You get to choose the level of participation you want to do with that. And that's the beauty of all of this, is you get to choose. And we're here to support no matter what that choice looks like.
Definitely.
Awesome. Well, we have a few minutes left, but I want to make sure, Hannah, because we're both in the health coaching arena, but again, we're from different schools, different age groups, so we probably have different ideas. For you personally, what defines health? What does health look like?
Well, I used to think health was like nutrition and exercise, like that's it. But then I realized, like, you can run all the miles, and this is my phrase, you can run all the miles and drink all the green juice you want. But if you're not focusing on your mind too, none of that other stuff matters. So I like to view somebody as like a whole. So I just like to approach health holistically. Like, it's all of those things. It's all of the things that go into your health. So I would say that's how I would describe that.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm curious, when people come to you, I mean, people come to us for different reasons, but what do you see as the most common issue or concern that people come to you for?
I would say most of the people I've worked with before were there because they know what to do. They just don't know how to stick to it. I think a lot of people view, like, they tried diets and that doesn't work for them. At least long term, it doesn't. So they're doing well, and then all of a sudden some stuff happens and they fall off. Or they lose weight and then they gain it all back. They're not finding like sustainable ways of making things work for them. And that's the thing, is like, most of these things that people are trying aren't personalized for them as a person. Like, I'm different than this gal over here. So what works for her is not necessarily going to work for me. So I really focus on behavioral changes, and it's not just nutrition and diet. So like if their goal is to lose weight, we're not going to focus on the weight. We're going to focus on the root causes of why they struggle with that to begin with. So yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm right there with you. That's also my passion. It's interesting though, because it is our behavior, right? At the end of the day, like we can change the outward external pieces of it, like what we're ingesting and how we're moving. But
Yeah.
until we address the deeper issues, I think you mentioned it earlier, the root cause, it's not something that we can keep up long term. So I love that you up and that's common, you know, behavior is hard to change.
Yeah, well, it becomes part of our identity, kind of like drinking does. Like, it's hard to, it feels uncomfortable. Like, yeah, it feels really uncomfortable when you're doing it. But like anything, like breathing, you don't think about that. If you practice, obviously we don't really practice breathing, but if you practice something enough, it just becomes a habit and you don't really even have to think about it anymore. It just flows, you know?
Right.
And I think also people, you should focus on why. Like I feel like understanding why these changes work for you helps you stick to them, because you're not just blindly following something. You understand why, so it's easier to commit to it. You know what I mean?
Yes. The why is super important, and then also, like you said, once you build the practice of it, it's a habit and you don't have to think about it anymore. So it's your new thing. It's your new identity, if you will. There's some discomfort there, of course.
Yeah.
Any change in life is uncomfortable. But I think you're a testament to the different changes you've made in your life and how you support clients making changes in their life. I popped Hannah's website in the comments, so feel free to visit her over at New Moon Wellbeing. I will also post her Instagram. But I want to ask you, Hannah, before we head out, is there anything that you're excited about either this month or coming up in the next few months that you'd like to share with people?
Like related to health or just in general?
Your business or how you support people or things that you're excited about?
I love my podcast. It's like one of my favorite things to work on. And I got an interview with the Food Empowerment Program, who is like amazing. They do like animal advocacy and like work on policies to get stuff changed for that. And I almost freaked out when I got the email, because I'm like, I'm just like a speck. Like I feel like a speck, you know? So it's weird when you're like, okay, I don't know what they're going to say. And then they were like, yeah. And I was just like, oh my gosh. These are the people who helped make Cowspiracy. I don't know if you ever saw that documentary.
I was too afraid to. I heard a lot of that it's tough to watch. So I couldn't do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, they're kind of hardcore about giving information like that. But I think that's really wonderful, because I think we need to see that stuff. So yeah, I'm super excited about that. I guess I don't really have any. I mean, I love December, so it's almost a new year, and I'm looking forward to a new year. So
awesome. Yeah. Well, when are you going to interview the food movement? Is it coming up in the next few months?
Well, I already have my episodes scheduled out until the end of December, so it probably won't come out until next year. But I think I'm doing it like the interviews like mid-December. So I'm really looking forward to it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to hearing about that too. And it's so timely, because every January is Veganuary if you want to pledge and try something new for yourself. Like we talked about being uncomfortable and trying something different. So maybe December, it's being sober curious and finding alternatives. But next month for January, you can check out, our animal-friendly movement and our sustainability movements and see what that looks like for you. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, of course. Awesome. Thanks for having me. I'm having such a great time with this. I was really nervous before I came on, but this is just like talking to a friend. So
it is. You're a natural, Hannah, and I'm so glad you were able to come join us. So thank you so much again for coming. I will post your links. Anyone who has a question, if you're watching this replay, please let us know. Just tag us and we'll respond to you. The replay will be available through Monday. So get your watch on. Come check us out. And Hannah, thank you so much. I wish you a wonderful weekend.
I wish you a wonderful weekend too. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.